We took a big jump forward. There are a few things that happened since the last time we videoed. So got carried away, and we have made some progress, and now we're really getting serious about what we're doing. I don't know if you can see the hole in here. I'll show you what we've been doing. I'll give you a little close-up and some thoughts about what's going on and all that kind of stuff too. So hold on. So things that I wanted to talk about, some hindsight, maybe something to think about as you're going. I lowered this first, which seemed like a good idea. But in hindsight, when you do that, and then you need to climb underneath the pickup to do the work, you don't have the ground clearance for your creeper, and then so I ended up jacking it up on the back, putting jack stands under it so I had room to crawl underneath the creeper just to pull the fuel tanks out. It would have been a lot easier to do that before I lowered it. So that may be, that's an afterthought, maybe something we'll want to think about next time. Or if you guys do it, you might want to do all the framework and the box work before you lower it, so you have all that room. The front end, underneath the lower control arm, there's only like 2 or 3 inches. I can't even get my jack under the A-arm. I got to jack it up from the center or from the side or from the rear just to get the clearance. So there's not a lot of room. So that's something to think about. How you make your cut, there's multiple different ways to do it. How you make your cut is something to really think about beforehand. I give it a lot of thought. There was just a straight cut. There was a kit you can buy, you straight cut with a sleeve. You can do a straight cut and reinforce it. Some guys have done an angle cut and fish plated it, and then this way here I seen with the Z cut, it just seemed like more welds that would have to break in different ways to create a problem. So it just seemed a lot stronger without having a straight shot. So that's why I went with this way. Different people will tell you different things about what's better. I just seem to think this one here was the way to go for strength. And it's important to not have your pickup break in half as you're going along. With the bed off, later I plan on doing some body work. I got to replace these corners. So having the bed off to do that's perfect. Something you need to know. Smaller tanks, shorter drive line. Obviously you need to shorten the box. I have the box I pulled off that I can shorten, and then I bought that step side box that I'm probably going to put on just to make it easier. So when I get done with the cuts on both sides, I'm going to slide it together, join the halves, tack weld it, and then we'll get back and take a look at where I'm at. And if I have any more thoughts, I'll share them with you too. Well, what we had to do to get started here were remove both saddle tanks, the drive line, exhaust, undid the wiring. It's laying here, we'll need to get that out of the way. Brake line over here. What I did at this point was just unbolt it from the frame all the way back, and I unbolted it off of the bracket, the connection. And my thought is, when I bring these two pieces together, then instead of trying to splice it or replace that line completely, all we'll have to do is rebend that line right in here and move this end to wherever the new bend is. Instead of putting a splice, we'll just shorten it up. Seems a little safer. And then of course, in the back here, to start with, we had to take the cross brace out of the back, ground out the rivets, and there are already holes here to move it forward. So we'll just move it up here and bolt the bottom end down here, top and up here on both sides. And then we're just going to cut off 6 inches off the back. I already started making a cut here. Just kind of getting carried away on what I was doing. I extended the shock brackets. So I was able to use front four-wheel drive shocks to get the right length. Up to what I was doing here. So the other side I started already, and I don't know if you can see this. I got this from Coyote Customs. This is how he does it, and it makes really good sense. Seems like a lot stronger. You mark it out 6 inches, 6 inches, but you should be a total of 20 inches, but you should have 14 from one point to that 6-inch line on both sides. Go 2 inches from here to start your first line, and then you just measure out 20 and you know where you're gonna go. I decided to leave the front bed mounts on this end of the top, where as I cut this out, I will leave this section, so I already have the front hole in the location it needs to be. And then this 14 inches here will be cut out. Where are we at? Here we go, sorry. So this 14 inches here will be cut out. And so by marking this out down the center, 6 and 6 in your 20, sorry, 6 and 6 in this 20-inch stretch. So what you'll do is cut up, up, and up. Leave this piece. And then you'll cut down, over, and down. So this will have this Z piece here that you're taking out. And I got started on the other side to kind of show where I'm at. And I'll go over here to the other side and you can see what I'm talking about. So I haven't finished making my cuts here, but I'm cutting along here and then down, and that piece will come out. And then this piece here, this notch will slide over this notch. And then so basically you're just welding here, here, and down. And then you can reinforce the inside with a fish plate. Most people are just fish plating on the inside, smoothing the outside, and just getting a nice look that way. Oh, I didn't mention it. Make sure you put jack stands underneath the frame before you start cutting. I put jack stands underneath the front and the rear of this back section so it doesn't tip and get out of control. Got the back 6 inches cut off, the crossbar replaced, moved up to the next set of holes, bolted in. I've got half the welding done, got it sleeved together and welded on the outside, cleaned up. I got a couple of pinholes I want to just touch up. I still need to weld the inside. You can see over there. So I just need to weld the inside, clean it up, and plate it. And at that point, the framework will be done, other than running the brake lines, or the brake line I mentioned before, of putting this using this. I'll tweak it, straighten it up a little bit, and then I'll just do a bend right here and bring it around and put a new end on it and thread it into this fitting here. That way we don't have a splice. And then just need to run the wiring down this rail on the inside to the back here for the taillights. Other than that will be a fuel tank, brake line, e-brake lines, and hooking up the vent tube and drive line. Still need to shorten the drive line. And that's where we're at right now. I've got the wiring put in. There was a little extra, so I just looped it and snapped it back into the retainers up to here. I do have a fuel tank coming that I can straighten up the wiring on that, get fuel lines hooked up. And then, like I mentioned, we got the brake line finished, so I didn't have to splice it, which was nice. I was able to just kind of fish it up through here, made a few little bends, just to kind of straighten it out so it wasn't rubbing on anything. And got it bolted in there, followed that contour nicely there, bolted in there. And then I just moved this spring protector, kind of a coily protector there. I just slid it way back on the line where I could make the bend that I needed, both bends, and put a new end on it, and just put a new flare, or cut it and flared it with a new end, bolted it all together. It has a nice factory look, nothing out of the ordinary. This way, like I mentioned before, I didn't have to do a splice up here. Some guys do that, or where it would have been up here. It's all one piece, looks good. I don't have to worry about any failures. And then I hooked the differential vent tube up to the frame rail right there, out of the way. Got all the brakes bled out. It's kind of nice. Anyhow, and then my welding here, we got that all finished up, welded. It was recommended that when you do this, just leave the bead. It's added strength, you don't need to grind her down. Got the fish plates put in and welded up. I don't know if you can see it real good with the wiring there. Jump around the other side here. You can see the fish plate, the welds. And anyhow, and that's why I really liked this Z-cut, because you have a weld coming up here and it jogs across through the middle where this plate is and then back up. So if it was to fail, the stress points now are out here and clear over here, so it's not like a straight shot or even an angled shot. It would have to fail, it would have to come all the way through. With the fish plate, you got it all boxed in, or not boxed in, but all captured where that seam is there for all that extra strength and support. And then of course where there was a few holes behind here, just did a fill weld, which added that much more strength. So anyhow, that's where we're at here. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Well, I decided to use this C-notch kit. There seemed to be enough room down in here. When I don't know how the weight of the bed's gonna affect this space. It's gonna affect it. and I don't know how much. We're gonna have suspension travel. Underneath the bed in the very center of the frame, there is a support that sticks down and rides on top of the frame. This C-notch kit is a C-channel, which slides all the way over that frame after you notch it. That's where that bed support is gonna ride, right here. So I either need to notch that out, or we'll have to notch out the bed rail, or that bed support. After doing research when I buying these, some of them came, about half of them were like this, and the other half were this flat plate and this flat plate with no top. So what I decided to do was to trim off that top piece. Then I don't have to worry about it affecting the bed support and trying to deal with that. And if I was doing this project with the bed on, I would have ran into this problem. So I decided to trim that off, and we'll notch the frame, put this on and bolt it on. And with this, I made a template. Then I line this up where it look like center and mark this out. Word of caution, there's a brake line back there. We talked about it before, making sure that we don't cut the brake line. Well, let's do that again. I'll unbolt it, move it out of the way, and start cutting. Got it notched out. By me cutting the top off, I can actually get a weld right in the very top along here when I go to weld, and I'll weld down the sides. I will bolt this in first, and then I'll go around behind it and weld it up. But anyhow, that's where I'm at. I still need to do the other side and finish bolting this one here up, and we'll get that done. So I'm just going to use 2 drill bits. I'll use 11/64 in this 1/2 inch. What I'll do for starters is come in with a 1/2 inch and just give it a little drill enough to put a little dimple off the tip in there. And then I can come in with this smaller bit and find center, because I already created it with that 1/2 inch bit. Drill out the pilot hole, and then come back again with a pilot hole and do this 1/2 inch hole. That'll make things easier getting everything lined up perfect, because with this clamped on here, I can just put a little divot, put a little divot, put a little divot all the way around. They're centered. You don't have to chase holes, try to make it bigger or wobble them out or anything like that. So just try that. It works out pretty good. if you have a bad case of measles like I do, get yourself one of these pads to kneel on. It'll make things a whole lot better, and you won't feel about half disabled when you get up from your work. So this kit came with these for bump stops to actually fit up in here to make your adjustment for your bump stop. I don't know that these things are gonna be any good. They're just plastic. First time you hit a bump that hard that comes up and smacks that, I have a feeling it's just gonna bust it to pieces. And then without that bump stop, you're gaining that much more clearance, depending on where you even set it. So I will probably choose not to use these things. We'll see as we go. There you have it. Bolted in. I have not welded it yet. I'll do that. I still need to put the other one on. But this is what it should look like when you're all done. If you decide to weld it, yeah, you need to prepare that ahead of time by getting all the paint off of these areas where you're going to weld. So thanks for watching.